I'm in favor of the death penalty because I think that if someone has the guts to go out and kill someone else, old or young, that they should be able to sacrifice their own life because they went and killed someone else.
Alright, so the question today is, do you know what capital punishment is, or the death penalty? Do you agree with it? Do you think capital punishment is a good crime deterrent? Is the death penalty irreversible? But what if an innocent person is hanged? Is hand for hand, eye for an eye an approach of humans? What if someone finds his or her spouse cheating on them and kills them in rage? Will they become equal to terrorists or rapists? Well, the question today is, how do we fairly and justly kill someone? So, there are many ways to deter crime, and capital punishment is certainly not a good way. It is also inhumane, costly, and not efficient at all. So the first place to start with the death penalty may be philosophical. The purpose of our criminal justice system is to deter crime, rehabilitate convicts, and incapacitate hardened criminals. Philosophically speaking, life in prison serves these functions better than the death penalty. Life imprisonment is certainly a deterrent. In fact, it may be worse than death itself. Life in prison allows for rehabilitation, whereas death is final. So, I found a quote by Thomas Jefferson about our government. The care of human life and happiness, and not their destruction, is the first and only object of good government. So does that mean that we don't have a good government? I don't know. Well, let me go ahead and answer some questions. Today I will try to persuade you on the abolition of capital punishment. First, I will talk about how it is inhumane. Next, I will discuss how expensive it is to execute someone. Then I will describe how inefficient capital punishment is. Lastly, I will take any question, comments, or concerns you may have. So, first of all, let me talk about the inhumanity of capital punishment. Capital punishment, or the death penalty, simply means putting a condemned person to death. Murder crime carries the most brutal of convictions, and such is our disparagement for the crime. So, however, capital punishment is nothing less than murder done in a cruel and deliberate way by the state. There is totally no moral ground in excruciating a person to death, even if it is carried out as the only option to punish the offenders. The death penalty is equated to murder. Murder, as you guys know or may know, is not acceptable in our world. It's also frowned upon by God or the Bible, whatever you believe, whether you believe in God or not. So, how is it okay for the government to murder individuals? We do train our young ones at a tender age that two wrongs never make a right. Yet we still practice capital punishment. So, institutions through capital punishments have killed innocent people, and this is found through research that I found. For example, there was many instances where the judges found out about the offender's innocence through DNA after the execution. Is capital punishment irreversible? Well, no. What is the solution to this? Do we bring them back from life, or what do we do? What does this make the government? Does it make them murderers? Well, I found polls that find an agreement that the death penalty is expensive and serves as little deterrent to violent crime. But it is just a punishment. It's institutionalized revenge. I mean, is that good? Is that morally right? Just revenge? So, I don't think it is. So, in order to maintain human rights and moral code, we must stop all crimes perpetrated against the country, not only by its citizens, but as well as crimes committed by the states, as killing innocent people. So, now that we've discussed the immorality of capital punishment, let's consider the money spent for all the inhumane killings. Many people believe that the death penalty is more cost-effective than housing and feeding someone in prison for life. Well, those people are wrong, or not informed at least. The death penalty is longer and more complicated than a life, than any other case. I mean, because the life is on the line. shortcuts cannot be taken because it's an irreversible mistake, as we know. So the question is, how much does the death penalty cost? I found that the average cost per execution is $2 to $3 million compared to $1 million in life in prison. I found this in deathpenalty.org. I also found that the most rigorous cost study in the country found that a single death sentence in Maryland costs almost $2 million more than a comparable non-death penalty case. I also found that Maryland spent $186 million extra to carry out just 5 executions. That's ridiculous, I believe. So, I also found that more than a dozen states have found that the death penalty cases are up to 10 times more expensive than the comparable non-death penalty cases. In California, a study in 2011 showed that the death penalty are 20 times more expensive, so that's more than the average. Also, I found that the state has spent well over $4 billion on the death penalty since 1978. I also found that due to deathpenalty.org, which is a whole lot of money. That's money that we can save. So, I found a quote by the former district attorney of Warren County, New York, Sterling Goodspeed. He stated that, "I think I could prove to you that I could put someone in the Waldorf Hotel for 60 to 70 years and feed them 3 meals a day cheaper than we can litigate a single death penalty case." It tells you a lot. That means it's a lot more expensive. Also found that even with the states with the fewest protections and faster process, faced exorbitant death penalty costs. In Texas, for example, the death penalty still costs an average of 3 times more than 40 years in prison out of maximum security. That's a lot. So why does it cost so much? That is because capital cases involve more lawyers, more witnesses, more experts, a longer jury selection process, more pretrial motions, an entirely separate trial for sentencing, and countless of other expenses, racking up an exorbitant cost before a single appeal is even filed. Most death penalty cases or trials are found to be significantly flawed as well and must be redone, sometimes more than once, adding to the high cost. So, in the next thing I want to talk about is how do we really enjoy paying more for a criminal to be executed than to keep him alive in prison without parole. They both have the same outcome. They will never commit the crime ever again. Which one do you prefer? I personally prefer the keeping the prisoner alive. Efficiency is my priority and would like the system to be efficient. Capital punishment is not. So, we've learned a lot about the death penalty in the last 30 years. We learned that it's a bloated and expensive system that has bogged down law enforcement, delayed justice for victims, families, and squandered millions of dollars in crime fighting millions of dollars in crime fighting. Can we afford that? I don't think we can. That's money that we can save. So, I've also found some research about Kansas. A Republican state senator named Carolyn McGee stated that they've had the death penalty since 1994, and they continued to pay for the process with little results. But they continue to cut programs that could prevent these types of crimes. So, pretty much the efficiency of the death penalty is really not great. It's not helping them deter crime. Also found another poll or research that police chiefs nationwide rate the death penalty as one of the most inefficient uses of taxpayer dollars. Surveys show that law enforcement would prefer adding police to reduce drug abuse and same crimes that lead to the death penalty. I found that 57% said capital punishment does little to prevent homicides because killers usually don't think about the consequences of their actions, or if they do think about it, they think they're not going to get caught. So, Richard Dieter, elected director of the Death Penalty Information Center of Washington, D.C., stated that there were 14,000 murders in America last year, but only 37 executions. He noted, but the South still had the highest rate. Despite having the most executions, it hasn't been making a difference. So, it doesn't really make a difference. I mean, 37 executions to 14,000 murders. I don't think that's a huge. I mean, that is a huge gap. It's of course inefficient, as you may know. So, the death penalty does not deter crime. Hence, it is inefficient and wasteful spending. An alternative should be sought that is humane, expensive, and efficient. The alternative I suggest is life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Some states have adopted this alternative and have had success. I found that Ronald Chapman, a prominent lawyer and graduate at the University of Iowa College of Law, expressed great opposition towards the death penalty when he was interviewed by Jerry Jolly. Mr. Chapman has defended numerous clients on trial for first-degree murder and faced the possibility of receiving death. When asked if he believed there was an equally effective but less controversial alternative to the death penalty, Mr. Chapman suggested that life in prison without the possibility of parole does the job just as well. I mean, think about it. If you put them in prison, they're really never going to get out, and if they kill anyone else, they're probably going to kill a prisoner. Do you really care about other prisoners that have killed other individuals? If you have any questions, go ahead and post them on here. I will put some websites you guys can go and research some more info on this. And thank you very much. Let me show you my audience again.